In this video, I'm looking at painting a kingfisher using watercolour, and I've used this book here, which is a step-by-step watercolour bird painting book, and I'm using the ways in which this author, which is Eleanor Longhurst, starts her drawing basically using very basic shapes. So I'd like you to do that when you start whatever bird you're drawing, is to break it down into very simple triangles, circles, ovals, so that you can actually get a feeling for the different parts of and the structure of the bird, so that the kingfisher is very simply put into a triangle for the beak, an oval shape for the body, and two large triangles for the wings. So once you've got that basic shape worked out, then you can start to draw in the refined outline. So remember that you don't want your lines, pencil lines, to show up in your watercolour painting. So that's something that you need to think about. This is the final piece of what you will be painting, and you're starting off with the base colour, which is a mix of Viridian, which is a very sort of rich green, and you're mixing that with some cerulean blue, and some indigo, which is purple, and you're going to add plenty of water as well to your paint. The first stage is to paint a wash over your head, and also the area just under the chin here. So the wash itself can be quite watery and thin, but we're not wetting the paper first. We're going straight in with our wash. I'm going to intensify that colour a little bit. When you come to the tail section, I'd like you to add more cerulean blue to your mix. So I'll paint this section first. So the good thing about this is you want to keep it nice and fluid. So it's just this top section here of the head. The wing, under the chin, and I'm adding more cerulean blue to the mix for the tail area, which is just here. So that is slightly more bright and vivid. Okay, so the next stage that we're going to do is we're going to start building up layers. So we're going to add some permanent sap green. So sap green is, I'll show you, is a slightly darker green. I'm using these pans as well. So I'm going to add that and plenty of water to the colour of the tail. So this is going to be painted over the area of the where the near wing meets the body. So just here, this bit here. And then this area here, just on the back, we're going to add a little bit of Payne's Grey. Or if you don't have Payne's Grey, then a tiny little bit of black. And that makes this area here slightly darker. So I'm adding quite a lot of water to the mix, just so that it flows nicely. And the next stage is, before I go into any of these areas, I'm going to allow them to dry. Okay, but these areas here, I'm just going to put in a very pale wash, and I'm going to use more cerulean blue for these feathers. So this is going to be quite pale. We'll come back and revisit these areas, but we're going to let layers dry rather than working wet in wet. So the next stage I'm going to do is coming into this back wing here, and I'm going to use, again, my slightly more cerulean blue mix. And for the remaining feathers here, along here, I'm going to use the wash with more Payne's Grey, but I'm going to alternate between a darker and a lighter wash. So I'm starting with a stronger colour. And I'm alternating that. And then either side will be slightly lighter. I'm going to bring that right up to the other feathers. If you do have Payne's Grey, you'll get a slightly different colour to this. As I said, I've used black, so it's made it less blue and slightly more greeny. So Payne's Grey's got more blue in it. So by the time you have painted these areas, the rest of your body will be dry. So for the in-between feathers here, I'm just adding a lot more water. Painting in a much paler wash. I can still see some of my pencil lines, so I will, when this is dry, attempt to rub out some of the lines if I can. So I'm keeping that nice and pale so that it contrasts. this area here, this top, just not this one, just here, I'm putting in a slightly darker, stronger wash as well. Okay, so what you're going to do next is mix up plenty of yellow ochre. So when you're mixing up a large quantity, you need to add sufficient amounts of clean water. And we're going to paint the face and the lower beak with this yellow ochre colour. So the lower beak is just here running in. Just up here as well. Now we're going to be adding to this colour while it's still wet. Okay, so we're going to add a tiny little bit of burnt sienna to our wash and let it bleed into the yellow ochre. So you're going to start to blend in slightly stronger colour. I'm going to graduate it so that it doesn't go all the way, it's just sort of suggest it. Okay, the other area where I haven't painted is just here above the tail. So I'm going to go back to my just pure yellow ochre. I'm using very smooth paper, just because of the type of painting this is. You might want to use more textured paper. It's up to you on the type of painting you want, the type of effect you want. Okay, we're going to go with much smaller brush now. So your sort of very fine brush to paint the eyes. Now, I'm using just pure black, but it needs to be very concentrated, so that means you're not adding a lot of water to it. If you do have Payne's grey, then when you come to paint the beak, see if you can add that to your black. I'm going to just add a little bit when I do the beak of ultramarine blue. So there's no highlight on this eye, it's just pure black. So I have a tiny bit of bluey green mixed into my black. And I'm going to paint the beak. So it's not pure black. So you're painting both the top beak and the lower beak. And then you're going to add some yellow ochre to that mix with plenty of water. To paint area just around the eye, okay, just here. And be careful of your, not to touch your actual eye. You don't want that to run, so you're just blending those colours really carefully. Also making sure you don't touch the black. You might want to dab it with a paper towel as well, just to soften it. Okay, so we're going to move on now to produce more finer markings on the bird. And this is going to be a mix of your burnt sienna, first of all, to paint the foot. Now you've only got a very sort of small amount of foot pointing out here, so I'm just going to paint that in quite a concentrated burnt sienna. And then I'm going to, with a small amount of yellow ochre added to the burnt sienna, I'm going to do a small amount of dashes down the front breast of the bird. So this area should be dry. And also this area here, which isn't quite dry on mine, but try and wait till it's dry. And also this area, which isn't dry for me yet, above the tail. You're then going to mix a mix of your Payne's Grey and indigo. So my indigo I've got in pan form. That's it. And you're going to paint now some more dashes over the head . This area just here, there's like a cheek area. And also on the wing. And you're going to outline each of the feathers that you've painted as well with this mix. Get some more dashes on the tail here. And just in between these feathers. But these ones I want you to actually outline the whole feather. And make sure you've got a nice smooth brush. you can take your time on this and really sort of work on the steadiness of your hand and your marks. Okay, so the next thing that I want you to do is white highlights. Now you're going to again need quite a small fine brush for this, and for your white highlights, some people might find if you've got gouache paint this will work really well, depending on what the quality of your white paint is like. So I'm using my pan of white because it's quite thick and it does actually work quite well. So what you could also use is drawing ink, white drawing ink, because that again is very intense. So I can't do this on mine at the moment because the black is not dry, but when your black is dry I want you to do a very small highlight in the middle and a line around the edge of the eye, like in this one. But as I said, mine is too wet to do that, so I'm going to wait. And then I'm going to start putting in some very small little dashes over the area next to the eye. Just radiating outwards. And again, over this orange section here, below. I'm gradually going to fade it off, so it's not going all the way down, it's just some of the way. And on this area here. And because my paint is still wet, it's not actually, it's blending a bit, so it doesn't matter too much. So you're going to also put these little dashes over on the head. You've got your dark dashes, so try and put them in between dark dashes. And you've got this large area here, which you've left white. I want you to go back over with your paint quite thickly on that. Continue your white dashes on the wings as well. And this upper bit of body here, which also needs some dark dashes as well. So these white dashes are going to come in just ever so slightly on the tips of each feather here. And you're going to do long alternative ones on the darker strips. And also dashes here on the tail. Now this orange section here, and any smaller areas, you might want to downsize and go in with the smaller brush. Okay. I'm going to stop now and I'm going to show you a couple of other birds that I've painted. So the Kingfisher I've done in a slightly looser style here, but I can still use some of the things I've learnt from this painting and bring it into this watercolour. So again, with some of these I've worked in quite a simplistic way. So how much detail you want to add to your individual birds, it's up to you. But the more you do, the more you're going to see in terms of details and feathers and different tones. So I hope you enjoy doing this, and take care everyone.